Hello, welcome to Hands 101 by me, Talos. Oh god, we're off to a great start already. Anyway, seminar about drawing hands, because you've probably said this before. I hate drawing hands. It's okay. I personally hear this from every single person that I know. I just so happened when everybody was like, hey, I really hate drawing hands when I was in high school. I decided, hey, what if I started drawing them a lot so I wouldn't hate drawing hands? And now I hate drawing eyes. So I got you for hands, though. um, but yeah, so I guess first tip that I have when it comes to drawing hands is that using your own hands is by far the best reference that you could ever ask for. I specifically, when I was first starting out with drawing, I heavily used my own body as reference, and I just realized I should have included some examples of my own art, but for at least really early on in my own art, I only drew hands a very specific way, and it was because I was mirroring my own hand. And that's okay. That's kind of what you want to do, because in order to really get a grasp on those proportions, you're gonna wanna do that. I figured, great place to start. We're gonna talk about the bones of the hand, because they're the literal building blocks. So everybody, you can kind of hold your hand up to your screen and compare the bones. We don't need to learn all the different names, but there's kind of, to give a brief explanation, the metacarpus are all the bones that are specifically in the palm of your hand, whereas the phalanx, I should have looked up the pronunciation before starting. Thank you. Those are the actual, like, where your fingers are. And then there's obviously kind of, you can tell where, like, the wrist bones are. It's one of the reasons there's so many bones in the hand, why when you break your hand, it's kind of a problem. But I'd like everybody to take a moment, kind of notice how flexible the palm is in and of itself. If you look at your hand and kind of move it, like bring your fingers together, you can see just how much your palm will move with your fingers. And it's because of that. The proportions also can kind of vary depending on just your own hands and your own anatomy. Like, there's people with thick fingers, there's people with really thin fingers. Some of the joints are more pronounced in other people than others. Even differences in your own hands, left and right, can be very different. Next up, just wanted to touch base on the muscles here. For me, kind of one of the things that really sticks out is there's a bit of connective tissue between the middle ring and pinky fingers that kind of get them to all move together. So when you move your hands, you'll kind of notice how those three fingers all kind of move with each other, even though they don't move fully with each other, which, when doing art, can be very useful to know, because they aren't going to move all independently from each other. Also to note, there's kind of no muscles really in the fingers. It's mostly just that tissue. But the sort of muscle in the palm that connects the thumb and stuff, that's gonna have a lot of gonna give a lot of shape to the hand. So, as I had said previously, no two hands are alike, even on the same body. In a moment, I can show you specific differences. I'm gonna do that right now. So let's look at that live example. Let me switch really quick on the recording. And I'll turn on my camera here for everyone to see. Ooh, if it loads. Come on. Oh no. Is it not gonna load?
We're getting the squares.
Oh,
We're getting some squares. Now you have me thinking if my hands are very asymmetrical. And I'm thinking really hard about it. I guess my thumbs are shaped differently.
Yeah. No, that's one of the things that I'm gonna touch base on, actually. Okay.
Huh.
This is gonna be a little janky, but I'm gonna switch really quick to streaming my OBS window here. Since my camera's not cooperating. So, sorry, this is gonna be a little smaller than Oh, it did that! That's interesting. Okay, that's fine. Can everybody see my hands now?
Oh, yeah!
Yes.
Okay, cool. So sorry if it's a little pixelated. But as you can see, between my two hands, there are some differences. This joint right here is really pronounced on my thumb. This obviously is much more smooth. This hand, if you bring them together, is actually bigger than my right hand. So hands can be very different, depending just on naturally how things are. You can see that muscle that I was really talking about, and how it can really define the shape from different, like, angles, and how much that, how much that can really affect the shape of the hand. I think another thing, which is the really small details, let me see if I turn on this light, if it helps define it. Yeah, kind of. I specifically knew this on my grandma's hands, where the creases can also vary between hands. I guess you can kind of see it on mine, but this crease right here is much more distinct than this crease, even though they're the same. But my grandma, she had, like, a very specific crease only across, like, this way on this hand, whereas on this hand she had the regular creases. So even subtle details like that, sometimes even the knuckles can be different. There's a lot of differences on hands. So even though when drawing, you kind of want to try to get as close to symmetrical as you can, you also don't have to, because the human body in and of itself isn't really symmetrical. And I think that's kind of beautiful. At least not to the perfect artificial symmetry that we're used to. Another example here might be a little hard to see, but even, like, this pinky nail is much shorter than this pinky nail, because it starts further down my hand on this hand than it does on that hand. Just subtle little things like that, I find can be very interesting, and are totally cool and neat. Did anyone have any specific questions before I continue? If not, totally cool.
Yeah, I have a question. You said live reference is really good. What about, like, if you do more like stylish like if you draw more cartoony or something like that, do you have like a good example of an artist that does like cool hands in a more like cartoony style?
Yeah. So I do have a couple, I think. But a lot of those artists will also still use like their own hands as reference. I'm thinking, oh man, I don't have any like right off of the top of my head, but there's a lot of if you look at old Disney animators specifically, like Rubber Hose Animation, those hands are definitely very stylized, but they still follow some of those basic principles of proportion that are used in that like are in the hand, I guess.
I think the one I'm thinking about is Milt Kahl.
Yes.
The guy from The Sword and the Stone. Those are really good hands.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's yeah.
But yeah, a lot of even just like Rubber Hose Animation will be referencing off of their own hands, because that's like, you know, it's a big easy to use reference. And any other questions? If not, I will continue. All right. So big point here. There's no one way to draw hands. A lot of people will give you like a very specific method and be like, this is the way that you draw a hand. There's no other way. It turns out there is. Everyone kind of comes up with their own different thing. I specifically searched up multiple examples of how people will build the hand. And the like Rhea Tibby has the like starts with a more boxy palm shape, and then uses like almost like a wireframe to construct the fingers, whereas Yun Yin uses a combination of like that same sort of boxy shape to start, but then also incorporates like circles and tubes and kind of does the building blocks of the bones with like the bones and the connective tissue with that. And Miyuli uses like contour lines, and will kind of, as you can see specifically, those three fingers that are connected with the connective tissue all kind of are lumped together in the early stage sketches in Miyuli's art, which I think is a really nice detail. But then also Larissa in here uses this very like broad, almost like mitten fan stroke to figure out the kind of the placement for all of the fingers, which I incorporate little bits of all of these artists into how I draw hands. And you can, I think what's really nice about all of these specific examples is it's pretty easy to adjust the proportions to how you want them. Like, for example, if you're going to make a character that has very broad hands, all of these methods work for broad hands, for slim hands, for like short fingers, for like longer fingers. They just need to be adjusted accordingly. But it's, I think personally, kind of the best thing to do when you're figuring out how you want to draw hands is kind of match it with your own workflow. Like, if you don't do wireframing when you're drawing naturally, you're not going to want to do wireframing when you're drawing with hands. It's kind of a... I feel bad for saying this, but you kind of have to figure out your own method. But there are hundreds of kind of base methods that you can find that will work really well for you. And I can even, when we're doing the live drawing session, I can kind of give everybody here on call specific recommendations. But I think personally, like, all of these methods are so good, and if you can kind of mix them all together it's even better. My very favorite resources, specifically for physical resources, I'll be able to copy down all of these also for everyone. Obviously the first point is your own hand. It's the best because it's free. I also, I didn't have some of these on hand, unfortunately, but MORPHO's Hands and Feet. That book is specifically really good. First of all, because it also has feet, which is another challenge point for a lot of artists, including myself. That's a really good resource.
We love MORPHO. Yes. MORPHO, if you want to sponsor us at any moment, the books are great. Listen, we're not getting paid. I wish. The books are genuinely some of the best reference books that I've seen.
They're also like small, so you can slip them in like your bag really easy. At least I'm not sure what the pricing difference is in a bunch of countries, but I know at least in the US they're pretty cheap. You can get one of those books, I think, for $13. But I regularly will reference, they've got a body fat book that I reference a ton when I'm drawing.
Yeah, that's great. That's a really hard resource to find. I'm so glad that they have such a good reference source for that specific topic.
The Book of 100 Hands by George B. Bridgman. That book is, I think, by far probably the best on this list. I unfortunately also did not have this one on hand, but he published this book in the 1970s, and people still reference it 50 years later because it's hundreds and hundreds of different drawings of hands in varying styles, in different positions and stuff and poses, and he goes really into it. And because it's been in print for about 50 years, you can find used copies pretty easily. And even if you can't find it used, there are other copies out there. But used is always a good way to go. There's also the Art Tips collection. This is kind of more, we're entering into the realm of just broad reference in general, but Art Tips collection 1 and 2 by Miyuli. They're available, I believe, through a European publisher. I can't remember the name off the top of my head here. But if you Google them, you can get them, I believe, both in PDF form and physically. But those art tips are absolutely immaculate. Miyuli has published a bunch of them just online for free, but there's even more in those collections that are absolutely fantastic. And then my personal favorite, and the one that I have on hand with me, which I will actually show you here, is the figure drawing Design and Invention by Michael Hampton here. Let me switch to that. But yeah, so this book specifically is probably, I've been using this book as reference for like 10 years at this point, but this has got all sorts of, like, muscles and shapes, and it incorporates... It's great for pretty much every part of the body, and he breaks them down, like, from the bones to, like, the muscle and just the general shapes, and it's a fantastic resource. I highly recommend this book. I think there's a 4th edition out now, but this is the 3rd edition. The 2nd edition is pretty much the same. I think there's just some slight differences in some of the drawings, but by far one of my favorite anatomy books out there. I highly recommend that too. And then let me switch here really quick to talk about some of the digital references as well. There's, I have these, I can link all of these websites and such, but hand gestures and simplifying the hand through the Clip Studio website. This one I actually referenced quite a bit when I was making the slideshow here. Kibitzer's reference sheets. They have a free gallery on their DeviantArt page, as well as a full gallery through their Patreon, which will include even more references. I use Kibitzer's art a lot in general, and they have, if you type in hands on their DeviantArt gallery, it'll bring up all of their freely available hand reference sheets. There's a website called Just Sketch Me, which I went on fairly recently, and if you click on the wrist on the models, it'll enable specifically a very zoomed in hand editor, in which you can adjust the posing and, like, angles for all of the, like, every single part of the hand. It's almost like a digital, like, hand doll for art reference. It's really good. And then there's also a bunch of YouTube videos, but I had found this one that I had also quite enjoyed, called How to Draw Hands in 10 Minutes, which I can link below. However, we should also probably do some live drawing, because this is art class. So I'll bring that up, and if there's any questions before we get to that, please feel free to chime in. But yeah. Okay. Let me switch ones here.
I think I always suffer a lot with proportion.
Mm-hmm.
I can never... I know it's something I will have to memorize, but it's the proportion of the thumb in regards to the rest of the hand that really trips me up.
That's so fair, yeah. Let me kind of bring up my tablet here, and I'll kind of do a little wireframe example. It's been a little bit since I have drawn on this, so kind of a good base reference to start with that is, I feel like the thumb, the central, this joint right here on the thumb, which I should probably circle in a different color, that's gonna be, at least on my hands as reference, it's gonna be the same basic size as this point on the fingers. Like, it's pretty much the same general size as that first spot, and then the tip will be about the same size as the tip of the finger as well. pretty much similarly sized. The only difference, of course, is that the thumb does not have that central spot right here. It's kind of almost there's that specific point that's missing. But that, I think, trying to, of course, measure all of those out. God, I'm so nervous. Trying to measure that all out kind of like naturally when drawing can be a little difficult. The specific cheat that I use is I will quite literally pinch and kind of measure with my finger on different points of the canvas to see how the proportions look. In comparison to other points on the hand, and even just like other points in general, like say I've got like one hand on this side of the canvas and then another hand that's up here on this side of the canvas. If I'm not sure what the measurement is, I'll fully just kind of measure with my fingers, and see like, oh, this is like this long, but like, oh, this is like this long, so maybe I'll like adjust it by like either literally just clicking and dragging to measure, or like resketching over top of it. That's at least what I do.
Gotcha. Second question, is that paint tool Sai?
Yes.
What a throwback. How vintage.
Yeah. I
feel
wanted to sketch on the iPad, but I was also kind of like, wow, this might be more of a pain to set up, so I'll just use the program that I used to use before I got my iPad.
Apple is great about letting you stream on non-Apple products.
Mm-hmm.
Hashtag non-sponsored. But yeah, like, I am surprised at how that base phalanx of my thumb is so has the same length as the base phalanx of like my index finger. I had not considered that.
Yeah, there's one of the beauties of like the body is genuinely how much like a lot of those the proportions on the body are very similar. Like when I was learning how to even when it comes to drawing feet, the foot is going to be about as long as your forearm, which is wild to me to think about. But like, if you can, obviously a lot of people aren't this flexible, so it's okay if you can't actually do this. But if you put your foot against your forearm, your toes should start basically at your wrist, and the ball of your foot should be about where your elbow is, which is kind of wild to think about considering how varying like feet sizes can be. But that, like, when I was initially kind of doing character design, it was like, okay, well, like, how big would this character's feet be? So I would use that as like a cheat. But there's all sorts of like little cheats like that, which specifically I think Miyuli's books are really good for.
There is something that I also recommend a lot, which is if you're doing for example a copy of your own hand, or if you're doing a study and you find out something which usually might be like, wow, I didn't realize there was this so much space between the temple and the ear. It's good to write it down.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you look at your own drawings, you're like, wow, I didn't realize that this and this, like, I tend to over-exaggerate this certain length. And it's good to write it down, because then you know for later what you have noticed. Because sometimes I underestimate just how much I forget things when I have a eureka moment while drawing. So I definitely recommend that. That is just. I just saw you whip that up in like 3 seconds, and I'm deeply unwell.
Big fan of the turtle hands that I also do. The Ninja Turtle hands.
I
gigantic
love
fan.
Doing the Ninja Turtle hands.
Gigantic fan of keeping like the ring finger and the middle finger together.
Oh yeah. Especially because if you move your ring finger and your middle finger, those fingers specifically are the most affected by each other. Like, if you move the pinky, there's like a little bit of that movement, but it's very specifically the ring finger and the middle finger are so linked. But yeah,
so I feel the pointer finger, even I think especially if you're looking at the hand from like the this is a very specific thing that I'm gonna say, but if you look at the hand from like the outside of the hand and your fingers are bent and you pull your index finger up, it almost doesn't look like it's linked into the palm at all. It's weird. I feel like the pointer is like the one that the odd one out usually.
Yeah, it's very independent compared to the other fingers. Let me try to...
Teenager.
I'm trying to be as loose with this as I can be, even though I'm usually will be like, you know me. I'll start with the line art, and it's like, hello, what are you doing?
Yeah, the tiniest brush in existence.
Yeah, but yeah, that can move very independently in comparison. Also, if folks aren't already drawing independently at the same time as this, feel free to also kind of join in and do a little bit of cheeky drawing.
I'm already suffering.
I found specifically that drawing the fist was something that I found very difficult.
Drawing the fist sucks!
Like, because it can...
Especially if you want it to look very, like, tight.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You have to squish everything together. That's hard.
Because there's also that, like, depending, like, I know at least with my fingers, you can really see, like, the other fingers in the corner there. And it can be quite difficult. And then there's also like a little bit of skin there. There's a lot of finagling that can kind of come with it.
Yeah, and also the way just the knuckles are aligned with like the pads on the top of the palm. When my brain likes to think they're at the edge, but they're like a little hinge. It's surprising how much we don't notice, like, our own anatomy. Even like a hand, you're looking at your hands like 24/7, especially now with like gadgets and.
Oh yeah.
I sound like I'm 70 years old, but now with the phones.
You kids and your hand anatomy.
You kids and your...
kids and your hand anatomy.
And your hand anatomy.
But yeah, there's a lot of just also like different... There's so many different methods and so many variations in proportion that it's there's also kind of that aspect of like genuinely a lot of it is just kind of practicing and getting the eye for it over time, which I always hated hearing when I was like learning art. It would be like,
Yeah.
oh, how do I draw this thing? It's like, okay, well, you kind of just do it, unfortunately, a lot. And like, I'd be like, there has to be some sort of secret. And now I'm like, no, they were kind of right, honestly.
The secret was practice, sadly.
Unfortunately.
I really like those two rhythms. In the thumb, the curves, the sort of like mirror each other.
Yeah, we love an S curve. Like,
we love an S curve, yeah.
It's great. I think probably my favorite finger to draw would be the thumb.
Yeah, favorite finger?
Like, listen, I draw hands so much.
Do the rest of you guys have a favorite finger?
No.
Mine is whatever what the thumb isn't.
Whatever the thumb
Middle.
isn't.
Middle
Middle?
favorite.
That's
Middle
a good
finger.
one.
I think I like the ring finger because I'm like a romantic person in my
I was always a
ideals
fan of
and
the
everything.
pointer.
I think this feels like something that could indicate something about the personality. We should have like tests that are like, tell me your favorite finger and I will tell you more about. Isn't that like? I mean,
Tell me your favorite finger, I'll tell you your sign.
Oh yeah, we have not like glossed over like palmistry, which I guess if you get a book on palmistry, then you will very quickly get acquainted with the lines inside of the hand. I think I had one, to be honest, but it was one of those things when you get a book that gets donated. And how do you like tackle like the finger knuckles? Like, okay, for everyone who's listening, you may notice English is not my first language, but when you have the knuckle, not the knuckles on the palm, the knuckles on the fingers, like, do you like heavily indicate them, or do you shade them, or do you not?
So it depends. I a lot of times will do, since I unfortunately don't do a lot of rendering. A lot of times I specifically, to indicate them, I'll even do just kind of like a simple line sometimes, if I do any indication at all. Because sometimes a single line can really can age things significantly, especially when you're only doing line art. I also like doing like even just a couple of lines here and there. I usually, I guess, if I'm using, hold on, let me switch colors here. If I'm using a line about this thick, I would want to switch down to a smaller line to indicate that. Wow, that was not great. The confidence in my strokes. But thin lines can indicate age. But they can also be really good when it comes to detail. But kind of, if you're doing a more like cartoony style, doing like one or two, like I would say like 2 to 3 lines can help kind of indicate that joint better. I typically will just kind of play it by ear with what looks good. If I think that it needs it, I'll do it, but if not, then a lot of times I won't. I think in like one of my drawings recently, I did just kind of that single point where there was just like the single line to kind of indicate. With, let me try to whip up some like a finger really quick that's like a little more rendery, because I I feel like the color and stuff when it comes to it is going to be more of a like hands 106 approach.
Oh, 100%.
But
I like having like my knuckles be a little darker.
kind of having, because there's naturally going to be a very slight differentiation in color. So doing that and then kind of having maybe even just, I would swap those colors honestly. But like having a little bit of a color change and then kind of just brushing it out even. Wow, I have not used this program in a really long time. I forgot all of my brush settings.
It's an oldie. An oldie and a goldie.
But yeah, there's a lot of methods when it comes to doing render work that can be particularly useful. I know how to do this really well with shades of blue, because I used to draw Kef so much.
You're a fantasy blue person.
Exactly. But yeah, even doing, I would say denoting like that, even. And then having like maybe like, not like that, but like a single
Right, yeah.
line there. Like that can kind of help with shapes.
And I always think that the curve of the nails is always a good indication for sort of like where the finger is sort of like facing in space if you want to think of them as cylinders.
Yes. I hadn't even touched on fingernails yet, but let me
I am in hell and in the fifth hell of drawing a fingernail right now, so
but yeah, I oftentimes when drawing out a hand here, I'll do okay, there, that's like a kind of a busted looking finger, but for the fingernail I'll do a lot of times just like the base of the nail and then one line to kind of denote where it is, and then I'll use the main curve here. I'll either bump it out just ever so slightly to kind of indicate or like if it's very much just like a view from a very specific angle, I won't really do like any bump out. Also, typically, I guess if you've got more of a square nail, it's not gonna bump out as much, I feel like, compared to a rounded nail where it'll bump out a bit more, like with a claw, for example. Right. A claw will bump out significantly more.
I guess for the non-fantasy artists, you could say like a stiletto. Yeah. Stiletto nail or acrylic. Well, to consider that there are non-fantasy artists. Simply give a claw to my card.
Listen, sometimes you gotta. But yeah, and then, like, for example, if you've got, like, a painted nail and you're doing just, like, really light gesture work, you can even just add a little highlight.
Yeah, just adding that little highlight is mighty satisfying.
Just a little highlight. There, look at how shiny that is.
Oh, 100%. I've looked at my hand a lot, and now it looks so weird.
Oh yeah, that'll happen a lot the first time that you're like really kind of like perceiving.
Oh no, I am perceiving.
I find too that like if you don't get wigged out by X-rays and you can look at them, you can find using kind of like an X-ray even as like a resource, because you can really see like the knuckles really well and kind of get placement that way. I honestly, when I was doing more wireframe stuff, I would often use X-rays as a reference, because it was like, okay, well, how do I, what is the wire if not a bone?
That's concerning. Also, this is a good tip for, I am just considering it right now, that I've made mistakes a bunch of times, but if you're referencing your own hand, because it's gonna be very close to your field of vision, close one eye.
Yes.
Close one eye so you don't get, you know, things don't move. The body's weird that way. When a finger is turned in and the nail is at a very awkward angle towards the palm, I simply turn them in and no nail.
But yeah, if folks wanted, we can also do a reference where you guys look at my hands and then compare if you'd like. I know that we're already kind of an hour into the class, but figure I would offer if you wanted to look at something else besides your own hands, I suppose.
Okay, so I have my some of the hands that I've drawn. Would you mind looking at them and telling me if there's something you think I could improve?
Yeah.
I'm giving you extra work. Oh, I'll make the canvas smaller, just so I don't.
Yeah, you can pop it into the study room chat, and then I can switch windows.
I can pop it into the chat. Sponsored by the Bootcamp Academy at hashtag Bootcamp Academy. Send your studies. We will review them Also, Raid Shadow Legends, probably. There we go. Let me post.
Alright. So let's open this up. I'll switch so that everyone can see, even those who are in the recording. Alright. So, to kind of, let's look here. See, you've got this little curving down right here. The thumb is looking really nice. Oh man, I'm having a great time. This looks great. I think possibly the only thing I can see on this one, that curve being slightly more pronounced, but like obviously if it's your hand, like it's gonna be a little different. I'm now doing all of the different poses that you did with your hand with my hand to kind of compare. I think on this one the thumb is like a bit long, but it's really only this joint right here, so if you just kind of like took that and then just kind of like pulled it down.
Oh, you're right now that I see it.
Let me see. This curve right here, I would bring it out slightly more, because this pinky finger right here, like looks like it's just a little bit disjointed. But was this the last one that you drew?
Yes.
Okay. Because I am going to say, I can already see the confidence build in this one, like, compared to the other ones. And obviously there's going to be a little bit of a warm-up. But I can see you already kind of, like, implementing, like, certain features. And there's a lot of, like, confidence in your strokes that's very obvious. Which is really wonderful to see.
Thank you. I don't know if I felt confident. But I fake it till I make it.
Exactly. You gotta fake it till you make it sometimes. I really like how you did this joint right here. This knuckle looks really good. And this spot right here, where kind of the palm folds in a little, also is really good.
It's very chunky in my hand. My particular hands, like
the same with mine. They're like, hold on, I'll switch cameras for a second.
Pointy fat palm.
On mine, it's so hard to switch these. Hold on.
Oh yeah, being a streamer and managing multiple windows at the same time is a pain.
Oh yeah. But as you can see on mine here, there's this little point.
Yeah.
That kind of bumps out, and like it almost is like a glove, because gloves will do this. Where it'll like bump out, but just on my hand it just does it naturally.
I mean, skin is a glove if you think about it hard enough.
Yeah, you know, you're not wrong.
I got one of those too, Tail.
Oh hey. But yeah, like that'll bump out. There'll be even just like this little bit right there that still folds in. But yeah.
I am unable to unsee this now. It will forever be in my hands.
It's just forever here.
Fat palm Abby.
This specific pointer finger right here, that slight curve that you got is really good.
Because in the other ones, I had angled my reference hand towards my eyes, but that doesn't read that well. I guess when you have like the finger pointing sort of like right at you, and or I don't have the skill to pull it off. So I was like, what if I help myself a little more by just turning the hand?
Yeah. Yeah. I think you did that very successfully.
Sometimes it's not that we're not skilled. It's that the reference is hard.
Yeah, 100%. Finding good
The reference is wrong,
skill.
yes. Oh, 100%. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people are like, well, it looks exactly like the reference. But, like, the reference has to be, like, read good. You know how people are like, well, if you get a good readable silhouette, well, it's the same with the picture. So if I get, like, a good readable finger, and I'm not, like, struggling with the phalanges. Also, something that I sort of noticed that I tend to do. This is weird, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I find that the first thing to bend is the very first knuckle, and then the second knuckle on top sort of bends less and afterwards. And sometimes when I've been drawing like hands like slightly claw, you know, with that little claw shape, I find that I bend that like distal phalanx a lot, and it ends up looking weird. If I made any sense at all.
You did.
You know, those people that can bend that like little part a lot.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's hypermobility.
Oh yeah.
I can do that.
Oh. Fantastic.
And then flexi joints.
People with flexi joints are valid. Anyone else drawing hands this wonderful day? Or am I just, as always, speed running?
I can send mine, but they're not digital, so I apologize for any picture quality.
Yeah, no, that's all good.
Traditional is valid. We support all types of art. Oh, never mind. Those are a lot of hands.
Hell yeah! All right, let me.
Oh, hell yeah!
I was just going for it.
Let me. There's gotta be a way to. Can I?
The one that's holding the page on the very left, it's so good.
Thank you.
Because hands interacting that's another level of what on God's earth. I truly think it is the most complex structure in the human body.
Oh yeah, hands are crazy, man.
There's a lot of them.
They're so delicate. Yeah.
I love specifically, you got the shape of the nail really well here, and that ever so slight curve for the pad of the finger is really good. I love seeing all of these different variations of the building blocks too. It's so
I enjoy the roundness to yours.
Yeah, I don't draw people a lot, but when I do, they're usually a little more cartoony. So it's a lot rounder and not usually as angular.
I like it. I draw like I'm etching on a Sumerian tablet.
So valid. Love the style.
Actively just like so it's good that there's like I I guess, you know, the best way to draw is the way that is like most natural to you, because we all have different techniques that we lean towards
I'm gonna
and are away from.
zoom in. This specific one right here that I'm zooming in an insane amount to.
Oh yeah, I love that one.
Maybe zoom out ever so slightly. This one, there's really like there's a dimensionality that you've got going. And that specific curve of the thumb and how this meets up. I'm like, that's the muscle right there. You got this. That's
I took anatomy class, man.
Yeah.
I went to school for that.
I also really love this. I don't think I actually had a specific reference for this, but the three ovals that kind of make that triangle shape. This is like one of those I see this all the time.
I'm gonna steal that.
It's a great way to do it because you can get the knuckles right here all lined up. You can get this very specific pad, and then also the spot on the muscle for the thumb, right there, which it's a great method. A+. You're doing it. Look at that. And just the
A+.
The delicate points of the fingers here, and that little squish that comes in with the muscle there. Oh, this looks so good. You're doing great.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
And then let me get Emerald's stuff in here. I am loving these boxy fingers and like these boxy hands. I am like, oh, not the sad face. No, this is good. You're doing really good. I just looking at these, I can tell you for sure, you should absolutely look at Jack Kirby's art. Because he is a extremely famous comic book artist, and he did flat-topped fingers just like this. And obviously it's comic books, so it's a very specific style, but I think he specifically has a lot of tools out there that like he's like broken down, and I think it was How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, which is actually what my dad used when he was an artist. But the way that you're breaking down the hands here is very similar to that. I am loving this thumb right here. Like this thumb is really good. You got that angle just right there. And even though it's a very different shape from the more rounded muscle, you've definitely got the shape down, just in a different way. And I'm very proud of you. You even got here, I didn't even go into a lot of the like wrist and arm stuff, but you've got the shape of the wrist, and
I really like the perspective.
Down.
The perspective on that one is very, very, very interesting.
And yeah, no, you've got the wrist down, which is extremely cool, especially because like the way that you're doing it right now, that the wrist there isn't really like anything drawn there, but like you've got the ankles down already. Also the middle finger, respect.
Absolute respect.
But yeah.
I just did it, and then you said, "What's your favorite finger?" And yeah,
Well, it's like this one.
Shout out to the fave.
Yeah.
The fave, gotta.
But these are really good. I am loving the like seeing all of the different ways everybody's been drawing. I really like this knuckle right here as well. I can see there, like this part right here, I think, is where you kind of started struggling a little bit, I think, which is when the sad face, but it's still good. There's, I think the biggest thing with this is, raising the middle finger a bit higher. So then that way you can get the ring finger here, to be kind of more in line, I guess. I would honestly, even with this, it's just taking this part of the middle finger and scooting it back ever so slightly. Because when you have your hand at that angle, if you hold it up, that middle knuckle there is going to appear as if it's like maybe like a millimeter or two behind the index finger knuckle. So even though, like, theoretically they're lined up, if you look at, like, other, at the hand at other angles, at least from that angle, it'll look a bit further back. Which, I think is potentially a little pointer there. That, and then the thumb, the tip of the thumb should, line up just with that first bump there on the that first joint, I should say, on the index finger. If you put them together, you can see it a little more clearly too. But like that would be, I think, the only pointers really that I could give. This specific hand, I'm like, oh, that's so Jack Kirby, I love it. But I think this is really good. I think you should be proud. But yeah. Let me switch once more to side here and do a little bit more drawing with you guys. There we go. Did that switch? It did not switch. There we go. But yeah, and then when it comes to more rounded hands, even, ooh, that is too big of an eraser brush. There's
I cannot see your canvas.
Thank you for letting me know.
No problem, I thought it was just me.
Come on, switch. Ooh, okay. I think it's just my stream is. Let me stop streaming for a second and then restream. I've switched windows a lot, so it makes sense that it was gonna explode. But
Oh yeah.
So for here, now that I've switched back, you can see kind of how the difference between kind of the more like, let me try to get these at the same sort of look here. The curve of the fingers is going to be slightly different. But just the different variations in the way that a hand can be drawn, where you can make the fingers much wider and more rounded, and even change the proportions in comparison to fingers here, which can be much more angular. I find that, at least with me, when I do, I think with all of my drawings so far, you can see I'll do kind of almost this, like, I won't join lines very often when I'm sketching, because I can even do, like, this, but it can be a little easier, at least for me, when I'm attempting to start lining and stuff, if those joints are a little more visible. So, like, for example, kind of joining all of those features together. Try to line very quick without backspacing and undoing, but I can find that kind of keeping those spots a little separate can also help with that, when you're sketching, because sometimes the lines can be a bit confusing if you've got too many of them. I'll even just, as you can see, I even do it with my line art sometimes.
Oh yeah, I usually, whenever I draw a hand, there's like a sketch, and then an over sketch, and then an under sketch for the over sketch, and then I throw in like gesture, and then I throw in like boxes, and I have everything have like, you know, side and the front, and I throw everything at it just so I shore it up with like every single piece of knowledge that I can, honestly.
I'll often, because of the way that I'll do color, I'll often specifically try to join as many lines as possible, because then I just use the fill tool like a cursed human being. But
some people have programs that have a good fill tool. Procreate, I love you, but it leaves something to be desired.
yeah. And then, ooh, here's a big important tip, especially when you're drawing POC folks. Here's just a kind of base layer of skin here. The palm is going to be a slightly lighter color. I don't know genetically quite, but there will be lighter color that kind of fades in at the side of the hand. So let me just kind of loosely draw here what that might look like. I used the corner of the canvas, and I definitely shouldn't have, but like.
The palms of the hands and the soles of the feet have less melanin.
That's it. Thank you. But so there will be like that little bit of a gradient right there. Where the melanin kind of differentiates. The same thing also goes for like the lips even. Do a bit of a better example using this hand here.
As always, whenever you're in doubt, especially with these things, use reference.
Oh yeah.
Like I can't, like, if you're not sure, there is Google and/or Bing and/or is Yahoo dead?
I think so. DuckDuckGo.
DuckDuckGo?
Yeah.
So old now.
I can hear Bobby at my door.
Let him in.
No.
He wants to give his professional opinion.
He does. He wants to.
Next time we draw the balloons.
Exactly. But yeah. Just clean that up ever so slightly.
Have meaty fingers. I'm meatier fingers than I.
We like a good meaty hand.
Yeah. There's the variation in connective tissue can be really fascinating, I feel like.
The human body in general is just fascinating, all its little working bits and pieces.
Oh yeah.
For cave paintings where they spread the pigment on their hands and left the imprint, they're all the same. I think they're all left hands. I don't know if they're all left or right, but they're all the same type of hand. So either it was like the same person doing it over and over again, or everyone was either left or right-handed. Like the entire group. That's very interesting.
Yeah, it could have also symbolized something for them, because there's always some sort of lore from different cultures about different hands and what they mean.
Right.
And their importance.
I think we have one in Argentina, a hand cave, and there's always something about sort of like wish sense, like drawing the hunt will help us, bring in the animal. So I do wonder whether that had some sort of cultural / religious / spiritual reason, or a bunch of cavemen were like, we're gonna put some pigment on our hands and then slap it, and that's fun.
Yeah, this is for fun fluffy time.
All right. Well, I think pretty much here, unless there's any other specific burning questions, I'm down to round out this seminar if everyone else is. We can even just kind of hang in here for a little while.
I don't think I have any particularly burning questions, just the haunting thought that I probably have to draw 10,000 of these.
Same.
Any questions either.
All right. Well, thanks
Very
for coming in
informative.
and participating.
Yeah.
I'm very thankful to have had everyone here today.
It's always fun.
Yeah.
It was good information. Thank you for sharing it.
Yeah, no problem. That's so good. Wait.
I need that.
Me too.
I need that in my life.
I will copy down all of the references that I have and pop them into the study room chat. If there's anything y'all need, feel free to message me.
Of course. I will be sending you all my hands from now on for you to analyze.
I'm just gonna keep sending you art stuff so you can hype me up, because I love that.
Oh yeah.
I am always down to hype up and to give critiques. I feel very bad about doing critiques just through typing, but I'm trying to get better at it.
Critiques are good. They're important. People need to know what they need to improve on.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not they're not mean or hurtful critiques. They're helpful critiques.
Yeah. Got to do
100%.
the compliment sandwich, I feel like, as well.
The compliment sandwich.
That is fair. Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna stop the recording here.